Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Reading with Grandma. We're going to finish our journey through the land of fairy tales. Today, we're going to start our journey with one of my favorites when I was a little girl, and my daughter's favorites, The Princess and the Pea. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of this story before. Leave me a comment below if you have, and after I read it, what you think of this story. It's a nice, fun story. The Princess and the Pea by Michael Freytig, illustrated by Anthony Lewis. In a land so far away that it would take as long to travel there from one direction to another, there lived a young prince named Horatio. Prince Horatio was much admired for being kind and loyal, as well as smart, brave, and handsome. In short, he was a perfect prince. And if that wasn't enough, he was also quite a stylish dresser. There's the clothes. How would you all like to dress like that? That's what the princes looked like back in those days. All of the ladies in town wanted to marry Prince Horatio. It was well known throughout the kingdom that the prince was searching for a bride, but it was also well known that his mother was very particular about whom she would allow her son to marry. Any woman who wished to wed Prince Horatio must be a princess through and through. "There are so many princesses these days," said the prince's mother, "but only a real princess with a kind, generous, and delicate nature will be good enough for my dear Horatio." The prince was bothered by his mother's wish to find him a perfect bride, but in truth none of the princesses he had met held much interest for him. He simply had not yet met the girl of his dreams. On this particular dark and rainy evening, however, all of that was about to change. The prince was just getting ready to turn in for the night when there was a knock at the castle door. "Forgive me for the intrusion," said a lovely young woman, "but my carriage has lost a wheel in the road. Could I impose upon you for shelter this evening?" "Of course," replied the prince. "Please come in." "Thank you very much," she said. "My name is Astrid. I am a princess from Wainscott, just over the hills." The prince led Princess Astrid to the castle's parlor, where a fire was burning in the hearth, and the two sat down together. They immediately fell into conversation and talked well into the night. Before they realized it, the prince and princess were holding each other's hands. Elsewhere in the castle, the prince's mothers had devised a plan to determine whether Astrid was a real princess. It is a little known fact, but a real princess has such a delicate nature that she can detect even the slightest flaw in otherwise comfortable sleeping arrangements. So the queen hid a single uncooked pea underneath a sack of 20 of the softest mattresses in the kingdom. A true princess, one who is lived up to the queen's standards, would certainly be able to detect the pea. Astrid was shown to her room. She climbed atop the 20 mattresses, hoping to dream of Prince Horatio. But sleep would not come. Aware that something was not right, Astrid climbed down and slipped her arm between the bottom mattress. She pulled out the pea and said, "Aha! Just as I thought. Now for some rest." In the morning, the queen asked how Astrid had slept. "I was quite uncomfortable at first," Astrid admitted. "But then I discovered a pea under the mattresses. After I removed it, I slept very well." The prince and his mother exchanged glances. In a flash, Prince Horatio was on his knee, proposing to beautiful Princess Astrid. Much to the dismay of the unwed ladies of the kingdom, Princess Astrid accepted. The couple remains happily married even to this day. And that's the end of our journey with the princess. Now we're going to read The Selfish Giant. This is another of those stories that I have not heard of before. So we're going on this journey together. Once there was a beautiful garden. It was covered with grass that was soft and cool as a pillow. Scattered about the garden were colorful flowers and peach trees that wore pink blossoms in spring and bore plump fruit in the fall. Birds filled the sweet garden with their melodies. They seemed to call, "Children, come to our garden and play." And come the children did. Each day on their way home from school, the children would visit the garden. They would lie in the cool grass and hide among the trees. They would pick flowers for their mothers and eat the sweet peaches for a snack. How happy they were! But one day, the giant returned. This was his garden, but he had been away for 7 years visiting his cousin, the ogre. When he arrived, he saw children playing in his garden. "What are you doing here?" he cried in a gruff voice. "This is my garden. Nobody can play here but me." To make his point clear, the giant locked the gate and nailed 2 sturdy planks of wood across the doorway. Then he hung a sign that said, "Keep out." The children watched the giant sadly. Now the children had nowhere to play. They tried playing on the road, but it was too dusty. They tried playing outside their school, but they were shooed away after their lessons. Each day the children would walk around the high garden wall and remember the fun they used to have inside. Soon spring turned to summer, and summer became fall. Then fall gave way to winter. When winter said farewell, spring came again. Everywhere the land was filled with birds and blossoms. Everywhere, that is, except in the selfish giant's garden. The birds refused to sing there, since no children would hear their songs. The trees refused to bloom, since no children would climb their branches and taste their sweet, ripe fruit. And so snow covered the grass with her white cloak, and frost painted all of the trees silver. The wind hissed through the garden, blowing its icy breath. "I cannot understand why spring is so late in coming," said the giant as he looked out his cold white garden. "I hope it will come soon." But spring never came, nor did summer. One morning the giant was lying in bed when he heard some lovely music. It sounded so sweet to his ears that he thought it was the king's musicians. But it was really a bluebird singing outside his window. It was so long since he had heard a bird sing in his garden that it seemed to him the most beautiful music in the world. The selfish giant sat up and looked out the window. What do you think he saw? It was a most wonderful sight. The children had crept into the garden through a hole in the wall. The trees were so happy to have them back again, they had covered themselves with pink and white blossoms. The giant's heart melted as he looked out. Excuse me. "How selfish I have been," he cried. "Now I know why spring would not come." He was very sorry for what he had done. The giant crept downstairs and slowly opened the door. As he entered the garden, excuse me, got a little tickle in my throat. As he entered the garden, he saw that in one corner it was still winter. A little boy stood beneath a tree, stretching his arms up to reach the high branches. The poor tree was still covered with frost, and although it bent its branches as low as it could, the boy was too small to climb them. The giant smiled at the little boy and lifted him gently into the tree. At once the tree broke into bloom, and birds perched on its branches and sang. The little boy smiled shyly at the giant. "Does this mean we may play in your garden?" asked the little boy. "From now on, this is your garden," answered the giant. "You and your friends may come and play here whenever you wish." The giant took his great axe and opened the garden gate once more. From that day forward, the gate was never closed again. Each day the children returned to play in the lovely place. They brought their friends and their sisters and brothers. It truly became a place for all children. When the giant opened the gate to his garden, he opened his heart as well. He finally understood that it was the children who made the garden a magical place. Being selfish made the giant lonely, but when he learned to share, friends filled his garden and happiness filled his heart. Each afternoon the giant could be seen laughing and playing games with the children. The trees continued to bloom, the birds still sang in the garden with all of their hearts, and everyone lived happily ever after. And that, boys and girls, is the end of our story. And you know the moral of this story is to be kind to everybody. Don't shut people out. Treat everybody nicely and fairly, and you'll be happy. The end. Have a good day and keep reading. Enjoy the story.